This episode is brought to you by Peloton. Step up your sweat with the Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus. Swivel your screen 360 degrees and follow your favorite instructors on and off your tread. Track your form and reps with the movement tracking camera. Feel supported as you train on the cushioned slap belt. And move to the beat with Sound by Sonos. Elevate your workouts with the Cross-Training Tread Plus.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We're back, folks. This is the More Money Show. I'm economist Steve Moore. We've been talking a lot about what's going on with the economy, what's going on with gas prices. I want to turn a little bit to finance in a minute with my good friend Jay Jackson of Abacus Financial Management. But before we do, I love it. I always get texts from our readers, and you may recall last week I went on a riff about how the Democrats do not want to pass a law that would require voter ID when you vote. And these are the same people, by the way, the same people who are against that are the people who say, oh, Trump is trying to destroy democracy and destroy our voting integrity. When, of course, I think almost everyone listening to this show agrees that it is just a good practice to try to deter the illegal voting by requiring people to have a voter ID. I mean, you need voter ID for about 40 other things in America. Why not voting? And so this friend of mine who's a listener of the show just texted me with a little note, and it says, if the Democrats really thought Trump cheated to win the election, Democrats would be pushing for tighter election standards right now. So why aren't they? And I think that's a good question. Look, we need to pass the SAFE Act. I want to make sure that everybody votes. If you have a legal vote, you should vote. But we should also make sure that when people try to vote illegally, they're essentially disenfranchising you. They're canceling out your vote. So let's make sure that we have more voter participation, but the people who are participating are actually legal residents of this United States, citizens of the United States, and that they have registered to vote. Okay, so on to Jay Jackson. Jay, first of all, thanks so much for joining.
Absolutely, man. Glad to be back.
So let's start with the markets, Jay. You're in the financial business. I listen to your advice a lot. I think a lot of our listeners are freaking out a little bit about the big sell-off we've seen over the last 3 or 4 weeks. But you're more in this for the long term in terms of Abacus. So what is your overall perspective on things, and what is your advice to investors?
I think right now, and whenever we look at things short-term versus long-term, I think let's add a new perspective here in what really matters. Yes, you can have short-term volatility. Yes, seek assets that tend to be less correlated to the rest of the markets. But in addition to that, if you're over the age of 65, you have a greater than 50% probability to living to 90. So that's 25 years in retirement. You're going to have time out. Hold
on. Say that statistic again, Jay, because that's a very important one, and you're the expert on longevity. Tell us that statistic again.
It's super important. So if you're at age 65 now, you have a 50% or better probability of living to age 90. And what that just means is hold on. I just turned 66 just last month. Okay, Jay. So you're saying I have a 50% chance to live to 90? You do. And Steve, you're fit. You work out, you do those extra things. You might even live a hair longer, right? But it depends on some of your family genetics and how well you take care of yourself. Sure. But that's why it's a 50-50, right? And you used to plan in retirement for 15 years, 12 to 15 years. And now, Steve, I'd be telling you to plan for 25, right? Nearly a 2X. And I'm saying to you, when you look at some of this short-term volatility, I know that can cause some duress, but my gosh, you got to be looking out much further than that. And if that's true, then these are going to be some of the smaller blips and things when it's all said and done. Like, my point is, you can cause as much mental duress and stress on yourself, which can shorten your longevity and have a bigger health impact than worrying about, rising cost of inflation in a very short window, because we know that will cycle out.
Okay. And so given those numbers that you're telling us, because by the way, as you know, Jay, our audience tends to be older. Most of our audience is in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. So this applies to them. Yeah. So we're looking at the market. We're seeing, big sell-offs, and that is certainly tied to the rise in the oil price. But what does that mean, when you're advising your investors? When you see a sell-off like this that is sparked by, in this case, the situation in Iran and the high oil prices, does that's freaking, I mean, people are feeling like jumping off the ledge right now, and I want to walk them down from the ledge.
Yeah. Sure. I do too. And I think, one, obviously keep your long-term approach, and that's easier said than done. But two, look at assets that perform well in these markets, right? We acquire and purchase life insurance policies. That is an uncorrelated asset. It's not like a piece of private credit that's a lending vehicle. This is backed by a large insurance company. So those kinds of assets are interesting. I think that when you start looking at your own portfolio, quick example, we had somebody who was, in her late 80s, had used most of her savings because her husband had passed for medical bills and all these things, and she was going to have to move out of her community. She had $1 million life insurance policy, Steve, didn't realize that policy was worth almost $500,000. That's personal property. And because of some of this volatility, she's now thinking to herself, hey, how can I use my assets in a smarter way? And your life insurance policy is personal property for you to use today. You don't have to wait for to actually pass away to do that. Words, it has a net present value.
So you're saying that you can cash out on your policy.
You can, and that's what Abacus helps with people. We paid out over $250 million last year for people over the age of 65 who were seeking liquidity. And so think about that, right? If you're in a volatile time period and you're having some nervousness about the market, look across the board of all of your capital resources and think to yourself, okay, I didn't realize my life insurance had a significant amount of value. Maybe I should look into that, create some additional wealth for myself, and then extend your financial planning, right? And then look at correlated assets. We're one of the largest asset managers in this space. We manage over $3.5 billion. And institutions come to us during these volatile times to invest in these kinds of contracts because they're not correlated. They have long extension and they have a great credit behind them. So, when you're in these types of volatile markets, I think it's important to look at assets that tend to perform well in these types of uncertain markets.
And in terms of the service that you provided at Abacus, so let's again take someone like myself. I just turned 66. I've had life insurance, since I was 30 years old, since I started having children, because it was really to protect against an early death, and I didn't want to leave my wife and my 2 kids destitute. But now I don't really need life insurance, right? I mean, it's all my money. I mean, it's my money. I'm not taking care of my kids any longer. Right. So if let's say I go to Abacus, I come to your shop, and how does it work? How does this service that you provide work? What are you going to advise someone like me to do?
It's very easy to do. One, we have a calculator. They can, all of your listeners can get almost an immediate response as what their policy might be worth. But two, once we determine that there's value here, we get a HIPAA release from you and we get your updated medical files, and then we re-underwrite for you. But there's something really beneficial here.
Are you going to give me like a medical exam or something?
No. We just look back in history at your medical history, which, by the way, everyone should do and have. We give you back those medical files. We go through our expense. We look at them. Number one cause of death in emergency rooms is misdiagnosis because people don't carry their medical files. I give you that medical file so that you have these things. It is incredibly valuable. Then from there, we underwrite you, give you a summary, and establish what your upcoming lifespan looks like based upon the current trajectory you're on, your life arc, if you will. And then we decide, hey, because of that, this is what your insurance policy might be worth in today's value.
And so, again, this is fascinating. So I want to obviously leave money to my children, right? And so I have a trust, but then also with my life insurance policy, if I die, that money could go to them. But on the other hand, I want to leave a good life in my last remaining years of life. So what do you advise someone like me to do in that situation?
So what you could do is what one of our clients just recently did, where 25% of, she had $1 million policy. She kept $250,000 for her heirs and her family. And then she took the current net present value of about another $250,000. So she got $250,000 in cash, $250,000 remained in the name of her heirs, and then sold the rest. So there's a lot of financial options here, but the first step is just understanding how much longer you're going to be in the contract, right? Like we need to place a stronger value on our health span and our lifespan.
And Abacus is, where are you located?
We're located in Orlando, Florida, but we're nationwide. We service everyone all over the country. Over $200 million that we paid out to people all over the United States. $200 million. We're highly regulated. Yeah, almost 250 actually. And it's great because we get to touch so many different lives and different stages of where they are. And we're a firm believer that, everyone's on their own life arc. Your lifespan isn't a straight line, and particularly nor are your finances. And we can help you understand both more clearly so you can make smart decisions so you're not so stressed out today. I know a lot of people, our clients, aren't stressed in this market fluctuation, right? Because they have a better understanding of what it means. So,
so what you're saying is like, someone like me, I'm 66. Maybe I'm going to retire in a few years. Hopefully not. I want to keep working, but let's say I'm going to retire in 2 years. Yeah. Then I want to live a nice retirement, and as you're saying, hey, you've got money. You could cash in on some of that insurance and, go on cruises and things like that and live a comfortable retirement life.
Right. Or meet other expenses or stay in the community you want to remain in. Or my gosh, you could gift that to your grandkids and see their faces and pay for college. Like there's thousands of things you can do because it creates liquidity that you didn't know you have. Right. And so you can go to abacusgm.com is the best way. You can kind of pick your journey and we're here to help.
And finally, because people love it when you come on, Jay, that's why I always bring you on. In our last 90 seconds, you always give us 2 or 3 pieces of advice for old folks. So I'm not old, but I'm getting there about how I can provide more longevity to my life.
Sure. And in the past, we've spoken about learning a second language. Today, I'm going to talk about something about grip strength. Grip strength is one of the most important things that you can capitalize on. And it's really easy to do and it's free, right? You can grab a pull-up bar, you can grab anything, and you can literally just kind of start to hang a little bit. Stretch yourself out, but grab onto that bar and see how long you can hang on that bar. It doesn't require a lot of strength. It doesn't require a lot of you don't need a special gym. You just got a bar that you're going to hang from. Because if you do that, you improve your grip strength and reduce your probability of falling. Because literally when someone has a severe fall over the age of 65, your lifespan drops to 2 years. So if you have proper grip strength, right, you can help prevent that fall from occurring. There's other balance things you can do, but I tell everyone, focus on your grip strength. Whatever you can do. If you're on a walk, hold weights, right? Or you can just dangle from a bar. Everybody can do it. And I can tell you, it'll have a huge impact on your lifespan and longevity.
All right. Jay, great advice as always. Thanks for coming on. We always like to hear your advice about how we can live longer and healthier and wealthier. Folks, this is the More Money Show. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be right back.
Thanks for listening to More Money with Steve Moore. You can hear More Money with Steve Moore Saturday afternoons at 1. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
2 kinds of phishing out here. One for fish, one for your data. Hackers try to hook you, but Cisco Duo keeps every user and device protected. Cisco Duo. Phishing season is over. Learn more at duo.com.